Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in the House today as a survivor of stage 4 cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in particular. And I bring that up because it greatly shapes my perspective on the legislation we're discussing today. When I was sick and I was going through chemotherapy and radiation treatment, it was taxing on me as a person, right? Emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. But the hardest part of it was actually seeing my mother endure it all. My mom is a strong woman and a woman of faith, but for any parent seeing your child go through a serious illness, it hits you very hard. And I remember vividly the fear and the anxiety in my mother's eyes. I remember her face when I was going in for a lumbar puncture or a PET scan, blood work, and just seeing the impact me being in that position had on her. It was one of the haunting moments of the whole ordeal for me. And what my family went through for those years was just a fraction of the pain and the anguish that a family goes through when they lose a child. What my family went through was just a fraction of the pain and the anguish that parents go through when they lose a young child in particular. I am very happy to stand here today and express my complete support for Bill C-222 and for Evans Law. I think that the government needs to do as much as it possibly can to support families, and in particular to support grieving families through difficult times. And this legislation represents an important move in that direction. I want to acknowledge the hard work that was done to get this legislation here, and start off by acknowledging the Member of Parliament for Airdrie Cochrane, who's been an advocate on this issue for years. I want to acknowledge the Member of Parliament for Burnaby North Seymour for bringing this particular bill to the House, and I understand that he worked closely with the member from Burlington on this. So I just salute them all and everybody else who's gotten this legislation to this point. To me, this is about the government fulfilling its promises that it makes to families, and that if the government promises to provide parental leave benefits to a family, it does so regardless of the circumstances changing, especially tragic circumstances, which I think most people would regard as deserving more support, not less support. And I hope that the Liberal government hears my heart on this, because I say this with zero criticism or opposition to this bill. But I would like to propose a change to this bill, a change that would expand the protection of parental leave benefits to more grieving families. You see, Bill C-222 is specific to families grieving for the loss of a child, and that is an incredibly important part of these changes to the Employment Insurance Act and the Canada Labour Code. But there are also families grieving in very similar situations where a parent has passed away, and as a result is dealing with many of the same challenges that this current version of Bill 222 seeks to remedy. And since we're having a conversation about making changes to the Employment Insurance Act and the Canada Labour Code, I think this opens up a window for us to extend consideration, generosity, and empathy to grieving families in other situations as well. I raise this, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of some of my constituents in Bowmanville, Oshawa North, many of whom signed a petition on this very issue recently, a petition that was inspired by the difficult circumstances of a family that I represent. For the sake of their privacy, I won't say their names, but they brought their situation to my attention, and I do believe with an appropriate amendment, this bill could remedy the circumstances that they have found themselves in. And I want to share what those circumstances are. It was brought to my attention by the surviving husband of a woman who tragically passed away while on parental leave with their first daughter. The surviving husband contacted Service Canada to inform them of his wife passing away, and the remaining months of parental leave benefits were then promptly cut off from their family. Shortly after, the surviving husband received a bill from the CRA requiring him to repay the benefits he received between the time of his wife's passing and the date where Service Canada was notified. I don't believe anyone in this House wants families facing unimaginable loss to go through that. I don't believe anyone in this House wants the CRA to be sending a bill to a grieving husband or wife. And I don't believe anyone in this House wants Service Canada to be cutting off benefits that were promised to a family at a time where they are not only facing an unimaginable loss, but also dealing with the economic uncertainty and instability that comes with a parent passing away. So my hope is that in hearing this story, we might be able to work together on expanding this very empathetic and important piece of legislation to include families in these circumstances. And at the request of my constituent, I'd like to read a statement from him to help people get a better sense of how all of this impacted him and his family. He wrote to me and said, "My daughter lost her mom before her first birthday, and that is a heavy weight for us to carry as a family for a lifetime. Maintaining benefit payments and extending some grace to those who find themselves in such an unfortunate position might make all the difference in the world to someone who is already running on empty, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially." Mr. Speaker, the spirit of Evans Law is to protect and relieve grieving parents from an additional burden. And I think it would be appropriate to provide the same consideration in cases of death of a parent who is receiving parental leave benefits. Continuing these payments to the surviving spouse for the remainder of the approved benefit period would alleviate a significant burden on the small percentage of families who face these particular tragic circumstances. So it is my belief that as I stand here in full support of Bill C-222, and certainly look forward to enthusiastically voting in favor of it in this chamber, that by raising these important concerns about the Employment Insurance Act and the Canada Labour Code, we actually have an opportunity to extend this consideration to more grieving families. I want to reiterate, Mr. Speaker, that I hope the Liberal government hears my heart on this. I say none of this as a criticism, and in fact, I look forward to the possibility of collaborating with them on an amendment that would expand this consideration to more people. And I am happy to have shared the story of some of my constituents who've been impacted by the policy status quo. I repeat again that I really do believe that the core of this is asking governments to live up to the promises that they make to families. And I think that we have to see that when the government promises EI payments, when the government promises parental leave benefits to a family, that that promise should be seen through from the beginning to the end for the appropriate period of time. And that that money should never be clawed back. There should be no expectation that grieving families have to return money paid out in that period of time. And most importantly, that families know they can count on that money that they have planned for, especially in a tragic situation where there's been a loss. So I do hope that we can get this amendment the consideration it deserves, and I do look forward to Bill C-222 supporting grieving families across our country. Thank you.
Well done.